Well, hello friends, welcome back to another video in our Professional Authors Toolkit. And this is the last one. This is it. No more Professional Authors Toolkit after this, which I'm kind of sad about. I like this subject, but I'll do other videos about other things. So anyway, let's talk about it. The last piece of our toolkit is a writing community. And here I think it's worthwhile to refresh ourselves on the difference between an amateur writer and a professional writer. That is, an author. Because an author is someone who publishes work, right? A writer is someone who writes, and an author publishes. You can release what you write to the public and still be just a writer. I was for years. I posted to Royal Road and to Wattpad, and I posted for fun, right? It was just to put content online and get people's feedback, stuff like that. And then at one point, I decided to publish my books, right? I decided to charge people money in order to read them. And at that point, I became a professional. And then there's a stage beyond that where you earn enough money from doing that that you quit all of your other jobs and you just publish books. Now, obviously, writing is still a component of being a professional author, but writing is all there is to being an amateur. Whereas writing and publishing is what makes somebody professional. And so if pursuing that profession is important to you, then I think that this is going to be a very helpful video. Because we're going to talk about community. And we're going to talk about the differences between a professional community and an amateur community. Because there is a difference. And if you are surrounding yourself with amateur communities, then it's going to become much harder for you to make the shift into the professional community. In fact, it'll just be harder for you to start writing professionally in general. And the reason is because of, a principle that I don't want to spend too much time on, but the principle is essentially that every person is an average of the 5 people they spend the most time with. And this is a truism. It is not true that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but it is a truism, and that's because humans naturally mirror our surroundings. We are tremendously good at adapting to the status quo. Whatever our environment is, we naturally mold ourselves to fit it, right? And that has a lot of implications for just how we live in general. But when it comes to writing, it's especially true. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you were part of a writing group or maybe a critique group or something like that, and you're writing and you get really excited about the thing that you're writing, and so you start asking people to review chapters and stuff like that, but then other people are like, oh, well, I'm not done with my chapters yet, and so I can't really exchange chapters yet, or I don't want to exchange chapters yet because I want to give you my work, right? And it's just taking me a little while, so if you don't mind waiting, that'd be great. And you're like, cool, no problem. And then a week goes by, and then 2 weeks goes by, and then a month or 2 goes by, and then they're finally like, well, I have most of it. It's not quite done. I've had all this stuff going on in my life, and I have most of it. Why don't you take a look? And you have just completely lost all of your enthusiasm. You have completely, lost the plot of the story that you were trying to write. It has turned from joy and excitement into frustration. And so you say, well, I actually want to rewrite some of my stuff. And so you start the process of rewriting, and then they start the process of rewriting. And years go by, and this critique group, which was supposed to encourage you to write, has become a ball and chain instead of the rocket fuel you really need. If you've ever had that experience or anything approaching that experience, then you are victim of an amateur writing community. Because remember, the purpose of an amateur writing community and a professional writing community are different. An amateur writing community exists for people to engage with the activity of writing. And that's what you are doing. Even if you're rewriting your stuff, even if it's taking you longer, you're writing. And so, so you are achieving the point of that group. And there's no reason to do anything else. I heard this quote in a book I'm reading, that every system is optimized for the result that it gets. So if you're trying to move from amateur to professional and you're finding yourself really stuck, like you can't do it, it's because your system is optimized for that result. It's only by changing the system, it's only by changing the circumstances, it's only by, dare I say, changing the community that we get a different result. And so if you want to step out of the amateur world and into the professional world, then your community is so vitally important. I want to talk about two different kinds of community, professional communities, that I think could really help with your transition from amateur to professional. The first one is professional communities. I realize that just sounded really dumb. What I mean is like events for professionals, right? Even if you are not yet a professional author, even if you are not yet published, that's okay. You can still go to a conference or a writing retreat or an event of some kind that is specifically for authors who want to be published or are published. And the nice thing about professional events is that they're open to everybody. They're just universally, open. I guess that's not completely true. There are some that have requirements for like how much you've sold or having books published and having earned some money from them. So there are some, like NINC, I know has some requirements, and there are others that do as well. But the point is that these are the kinds of events that you want to go to, because what you want to do is you want to surround yourself with people who have already done the thing you want to do. I don't mean to say that your writing group isn't good, but if nobody in your writing group has published a book, then talking to them about how to publish a book is probably not going to get you the furthest. On the other hand, if you go to a professional event and the people who are surrounding you are people who have published books successfully, they have made money from it, then they're going to be good people to ask, right? They're going to get you started, get you moving in the right direction. These are people who are going to encourage you in the right ways and are going to help you understand what you don't need to worry about, right? They're not concerned with how their writing matches up against your writing, which is often the primary goal of a critique group, right? Is to see how our writing matches up against each other. Instead, these are people whose concern is how do they do the thing they're doing better. And so all of their energy and attention is focused in that direction. And you can ride along that wave. Sometimes what will happen is you'll go and you'll start these relationships with these people who have already done the thing you want to do. And then naturally you will find yourself starting to take the actions necessary to get to where they are. And that's exactly what you want to do, right? You want to put yourself in positions where the 5 people around you average to someone who is successful. And I know that not everybody can afford to go to an event in person. But you know what you can do? You can get on the forums. You can get on and get a virtual ticket. You can watch things on YouTube or get on Facebook and join the free groups. The 20 Books to 50K group on Facebook is a great example of this. It's full of tremendous information. If you go on there and start reading, you're going to find yourself getting an education, regardless of whether you end up following the advice or not. It's just tremendously useful information, right? And the reason is because all of the people in that group want to do the thing, and they are all trying to do the thing. And so, as you join them, you will naturally be pulled along to do the thing. And in this case, the thing is being a professional author. So while I have just spent the last 10 minutes telling you not to be in a critique group, at least an amateur critique group, and I do stand by that, I don't think it's actually helpful at all. My next community suggestion is that you go and find a group of people who are approximately where you are in your career, but are all interested in getting ahead. Even better, find a group of people who are further ahead than you. Sometimes it can be hard to get into those groups, and the further ahead they are, the less helpful those groups can sometimes be. You gotta sort of play that by ear. But just like you've gone and found these professional events or these professional event communities like 20 Books to 50K, the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you are becoming friends with those people, that you are interacting with them on a personal level, and you then want to encourage them in their writing. And as you encourage them in your writing, they will start to encourage you in your writing. And you can start to form the kind of critique group that is actually helpful, that is not just about trading writing, but is instead about trading business advice. Okay? You don't want a professional community as an author for your writing. You want a professional community for the choices that you make in your business, because that's going to actually be helpful to you. If you need feedback on your writing, then go to Royal Road. Put your stuff out in the public space and see what people think about it. If you need help with your writing, go to a writing workshop. Go to a conference about craft and study that way. You don't need a dedicated group of people who are going to feed you information about your writing. Not at this stage. No, what you need is a group of people who will feed you information about the business decisions that you're making. Is my cover actually going to sell? You know who can't answer that? The other amateurs in your critique group. You know who can answer that? Other people who are trying to publish their books and are looking around at the landscape and saying, well, it looks like these books sold and their covers all have these similarities. And so how do we identify what those similarities are, and how do we apply those to our books? You know who's not going to help you sell books? People who have never written a blurb before, and you send them a blurb and they're like, well, I guess it reads fine. No, the people who are going to help you are the people who say, if we look at the blurbs of the top 10 most popular stories in our genre, these are the similarities. This is the thing that all of them seem to mention. Maybe we need to mention that. I hope you're understanding here. Being an author is related to writing, but it is the business side of selling books. And if you want to be a professional author, that's the kind of community you need to be in. Your craft is something that you can work on. It's something that you can polish. But getting an education in business, that's something that's much harder. And the best way to shortcut it, so that you don't have to do all of the work yourself, so that you don't have to make all of the mistakes yourself, is to join a community where that's the focus. Writing is not the focus, that's the focus. Because if you can't write without a group, then you're probably not going to make it as an author. Yeah. Sorry, that's the reality of it. Because nobody's going to stand there over your shoulder and, crack their whip to make you work. If you do become an author, then you're going to have to just do it yourself. You have to stand there with the whip, cracking it to make yourself go. And that's, again, I did not mean for this. I really didn't mean for this to turn into a video, an anti-critique group video. So many times I talk to people who have ambition to be professional authors, and all they talk about is what their critique group says, or, what their writing group says. Writing groups can make fantastic writers, but they cannot make great authors, because being an author has this entire business component that's just completely separate from your ability to write books. And the sad reality is that you can be a subpar writer and be tremendously successful as an author. Maybe that's not sad. I don't know. It is the state of the world we live in. Writing a good book is not the same as selling a good book. And so if you want to become an author, then that's the community you need. The community that can teach you how to sell a book. Anyway, I've ranted on this topic long enough. Thank you all for listening, and I hope that you can get something of value out of this. The last kind of community that I will say you should join are sprint communities. I have a sprint community here on YouTube. You don't have to join mine. There are a tremendous number of them out there. But these are communities that are going to encourage you to sit down and actually do the writing. And they're communities where the people who are running them or are involved in them are serious about the business of writing. They're not just serious about the writing itself, but they're serious about the business of writing. That's why they sit down consistently and run sprints. And so if you find one of those communities, if you don't have any other communities, start there. Join one of those communities. That's where you can ask questions. You can start to get feedback and advice on your business decisions. None of those people are going to read your book. None of them are going to give you feedback on the fiction that you write. And they shouldn't. That's not the place for it. They're there to do their own work, and you're there to do your work. But in the spaces in between your sprints, you can ask questions about marketing. You can ask questions about, about setting up your habits. You can ask questions about things that you're struggling with, things like getting reviews, all of those things you can ask questions about. And the people who are going to answer you are people who are on the journey themselves, who are trying to do the thing that you're trying to do. And that is the kind of person that you want to surround yourself with. As always, if you have any questions about this topic, leave them in the comments below. Be happy to answer them. If you have other topics that you'd like me to cover, leave them down there too. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is it for our Professional Author Toolbox videos, but I have some other topics coming up soon that I'm super excited to bring you.